Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bald Box, where we discuss issues affecting everybody worldwide. And I'm joined today by two of my mentors. Throughout my career, I don't think I'd have done my music the way I did it without them. On my right, I have Mr. Musyoka himself. Musyoka, just introduce yourself first of all. Because I don't want to, undersell your accolades.
Well, Eric Musyoka. I'm a music producer. I call myself an creative entertainment entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah. I don't know what else to say.
Creative entertainment entrepreneur. That's amazing. Musyoka, I'll ask you just a few more questions.
Yeah.
For guys to know the background of your background. Mm-hmm. Like, where did you study and how did you land in the music business?
For me personally, there's nothing else I've done since I knew how the world exists. I've been doing music. I was a drummer from 1991. Started drumming.
You're a drummer?
Yes.
I never knew
used to play drums. Nilikuwa naenda kusikiza Katitu Boys Band Showground. I'm 9 years old. I'm just standing there listening to them singing. Then I came to a group of schools. It's your polling station. Then one Victor Say taught me keyboards, how to play the piano. Yes,
Victor Say was the legendary Victor Say. Shout out to Victor Say.
Victor Say Five Alive was my piano teacher at the group of schools, Riara. Mm-hmm. Then from there, I joined high school and joined a rap group called Nanoma, and I was assigned artist at the age of 17. My professional career started April 17th, 1997.
Mlikuwa wapi?
I still have the contract to date.
I know you keep your contracts, man. Yes. I go to Musyoka's studio and I look on the wall, and he's kept every tag from every event for the last I don't know how many years.
Yeah, so
I love how you archive everything in your life.
Yeah, so I started my music journey there. In between, I've done, of course, education, a degree in IT. Then in 2006, 7, and 8, I was in the US studying, just enhancing my knowledge in production and, just exploring the world. And yeah, apart from that,
I want guys to know the school you went to and who's gone to that school and why Musyoka is Musyoka.
I went to a school called School of Audio Engineering, SAE. Proud alumni of SAE, class of 2008.
And your classmates?
Some nice people.
So being modest. Anyway, guys, Musyoka's classmates and Musyoka's peers are people who've shaped the music industry globally right now. Musyoka was in class with guys who started Spotify.
Yes.
Guys who started streaming.
Yes.
So it's an animal that he understands very well because he saw the inception.
Yep. The guys of Spotify came to our school and nobody had seen that future. And then also one of my classmates, Nelson, he worked on this guy. He's a very big pop star. His name will come. Yeah, then Chaz has worked with Puff Daddy. He was one of the chief engineers for Day 26, Puff Daddy's album. And yeah.
Now known as P. Diddy.
Yeah, now known as P. Diddy.
You see Puff Daddy, like I'm seeing you're selecting some guys in the room here. So fresh, I'm Puff Daddy himself in gun.
Actually, he's married Imani. He's married to a Somali woman. He's a very big rock star. He passed away.
David Bowie.
Yes. His main engineer was my classmate.
Damn.
Yeah.
All right. And on my left, I have somebody who has all my secrets. And a brother who who I owe my life to, man, in many ways. This guy civilized me. This guy took my mind and my career to spaces that, both of us had never been to. And we made a lot of magic together. We made a lot of amazing moves together. On my left, Mr. Marek motherfucking Fox. My brother. See, introduce yourself, like I need you to say something, man.
I don't have such a strong introduction like Musyoka over here, but Marek, I am in the music business. Found myself in the music business because of these guys.
Imagine.
I was never really I was never in it, even though I lived in Los Angeles. I'm originally from Czech and South Africa, etc. But when I came to Kenya 13 years ago, was doing completely something else. I was in CSR and CSV in that type of business, and then I ran into you guys at a show, and guess we clicked somehow. And the next thing, we were together on tour, and then somehow decided to work together for those 6 or 7 years. Magical years that got me into the music business and never left, really. And now I run an agency called ACE, Africa Centric Entertainment, which is a talent, brand, and a festival agency, and pretty much thanks to you guys. And correct, man, that was incredible 6 or 7 years, and learned a lot from each other.
Yes, I love that. I met Marek at NIS at an event that was being held there when Sauti Sol was just like starting out, and we were just about to go to Europe on tour. And our manager at the time, Ninke, proposed to Marek, yo, you should bring these guys to Czech Republic, because Marek had some contacts in 2 festivals, Colors of Ostrava and Karlovy Film Festival. And we played in Czech Republic, and it was nuts. Like, people were going crazy, you know, like
that was
girls
special.
screaming.
Yeah.
Just the craziest, you know, experience I've ever had in Europe even to date.
Yeah.
And that's what birthed the Sauti Sol Marek collab. And it's still my best years of my life.
I mean,
I'm trying to find best years. But
no, this is pretty much
and I'm looking forward to a future where we continue working together in the different spaces we're in. I'm happy that we are always like together. The other day we met in Durban in South Africa.
Just last weekend.
It was heavy.
It was a nice reunion on the road again after a while.
Yes, actually, we were on the road again after a long time. We went out, and I won't say what happened. But it's always legendary. Uko sawa msioka? Maji ya kunywa?
Shakunywa.
Tachapa. Sawa, mzee, unajua unaweza kuweka hapo hivi na so fresh to edit edit your vocals. Yeah, so I just want to give you guys a brief I gave you guys a brief intro to Marek. This is how I met Musioka. It was the year 2005. I just finished my last paper. I think it was chemistry practical. I'm going to bioprac. I walked out of of the lab from Upper Hill School and walked straight to Baricha Road into Homeboys in my uniform. And I asked for Musioka. So I started the reception. And the receptionist was like, do you have an appointment? I was like, no, I don't have an appointment. I've just come to see him. I'm a talented musician. I sat there for close to 2 hours because Musioka at the time was handling all the production under Homeboys, the record label. And he was doing SEMA. SEMA had just been signed to Homeboys. I got into the reception. Musioka then later, after me pushing the receptionist, mpigie, mwambie come. Musioka pulls up to the reception and finds 2 scrawny ass looking kids. It was me and a friend of mine called D. Shout out to D. He's in Australia right now. He's a nurse. And D and I had a group called B&D. Very creative. So B&D, D was the rapper and I was the singer. And Musioka was like, so mekuja kuniambia mnaweza rap? I've never seen someone that pissed in my life. Like Musioka was just like, how do I to hapa kazi nilikuwa nafanya? So he was like, yo, sing. And we performed a song we had written called Hey Baby on the reception there. And he was like, okay, I like how you're singing, but I don't like how you're rapping, my friend D. So
he was like, I'm going to nursing school, right?
No, but he told us to come back another day. And then we went on another day and we just found him swamped with work, you know, and it never really materialized or anything. But now that I think about it, I wasn't ready. Like, what was I even going to do in the booth? I had no knowledge of self and I needed to have.
Can you imagine? You're coming to sing to me. I've been recording TID.
Wow.
Juma Nature. I mean, the benchmark
was high.
And you see, that's what a lot of starting musicians don't understand. I always advise them, never run to a big time producer because he's benchmarking you. I mean, come on.
It's a necessary trip they have to take in order to, because
it is, but
they will never listen really and learn until they do that, and they're like, okay, lesson learned. Like you,
I think that's where you learn the world doesn't owe you.
But anything. Most of them, one problem with creative people, their sense of importance. So you tell them that, they think, this is it. I'm done. You see, they never look at it like you stumble a few times and you stand up and, you know.
And you move.
If you believe in yourself and you have the right talent and the right attitude, you'll get where BN is. I mean, there are people who I told they can't sing and they took it personal. But it's true, you can't. Where are you now? You know.
And actually, a few years down the line, Musyoka started to mix and master our music. I think it was from the album Live and Die in Africa.
Yeah, it was that.
Yeah.
And if you listen to Sauti Sol's journey, like sonically, that's when we had a sonic leap into a new dimension where we had better quality in our music. And then Musyoka then took another step and taught Savara and Polycarp engineering and production. And Savara and Polycarp have been our engineers and producers since. Like, he's always been such a brother, man, so reliable. You know, anytime you call on Musyoka, he'll deliver. And I think you've built a reputation of just being consistent and you deliver all the time. So, man, much
Thanks.
respect.
Thank you.
Yeah, today we're here to talk about the game. I had questions, but I don't think I'll follow the format of the questions because some of them are a bit juvie. You guys are heavy hitters.
Let's shoot the shit.
Yeah, man. I want to talk about the state of the industry, first of all, as is right now. What do you guys feel we are doing right? Where are we in the world, in the scope of things in the world? Are we moving forward? Are we making steps back? And possibly, where would you like to see the industry? Start with you, Marek.
Okay. I mean, so let's start with, I guess, the lightweight in this equation because I'm more new to this game than you guys have. And my history, no, sure. But as well, coming from as well, I guess that's a nice contrast, I guess, because it's oftentimes interesting to view something more from the outside, even though I don't consider myself from the outside anymore, but that was my beginning, right? And oftentimes you can reflect on yourself better, or some people might reflect on you from the outside than from the inside because you're within it. And when I arrived here those 13 years ago, and then when I got into the business with you guys about those 9 or 10 years ago, you know, we were always talking about how music industry, or we calling it a music scene back in the day,
It was
right?
a scene.
And it was more of a scene. And I think since then it's been progressing. And I think there was some sort of a regression in between, and I can't speak to that because I wasn't here and wasn't growing up, but I hear all these things and hear all these things and seen all these things that were in the past where the music industry seemed to have been much stronger in Kenya, and then there was some sort of a dip. You know, I don't know if it was before and after Caliph and Ogopa DJs and stuff like this and Homeboys, which was really strong, and then there seemed to have been a dip in those mid 2000s, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And I was kind of landing into Kenya during that time. And there seemed to have been a kind of a disarray back then. There wasn't really any structures. There wasn't much respect for the arts as well. I remember at the beginning when we were speaking, people always were like, you know, you were telling me guys, like, your parents would be like, when you're getting a real job, and it wasn't considered
A career.
Yeah, career, right? And it's a very respected career where I'm from, where I lived, from US to South Africa to Czech Republic, around the world, even just around here in Congo, Nigeria, etc., South Africa. It's considered something, you know, for what it is, a career, respect for career, very important, right? So where it is today, since then, I think it's grown bounds and leaps. You guys have done an amazing work to get it there, and people look up to you for that reason. And I was happy to be part of that journey, and maybe was part of the journey because I came from the outside and I wasn't bogged down by the thinking that that was. And I look back at that and I'm like, maybe that was my advantage, because I remember when we spoke about working together, I was like, I don't want to ruin your careers. I've never done this. What am I going to do? Yeah. And you guys were like, we kind of know the business. You just do you. We want that kind of business element and your kind of thinking into it. And that was
like that deal in a bar in Czech Republic next to the to the river.
Pretty much. Yeah. So, you know, coming from the outside and looking at it where I'm now these days on the inside, I think it's grown leaps and bounds. Where's the industry going? I think it's going in a positive direction. The biggest issue back then was defining Kenya sound. I remember when we were touring, people were always asking us that question, like, what's Kenya sound? Because there seemed to have been a disconnect. People could very clearly connect Congolese, Nigerian, South African, even Tanzanian sounds. But everybody was always asking us, what is Kenya sound? And I think that we can get into a deeper discussion about how is Kenyan music connected to its past and its history and its culture, or disconnected from it. But I think there's this new wave that's coming out, even in the direction where you guys are going, the rumba, and going back to your roots, which I think really where the key is, and borrowing from the past. I think that's why Nigerian Afrobeat's taken off so much, because it's connected to Afrobeat and Fela Kuti, and it has a history, and you can borrow from that, learn, adapt, and that unique sound that you're borrowing from your past, as opposed to creating something brand new. There's a lane for that.
Yeah.
But I think there's a progression if you're borrowing from your past and making it, modernizing it, making it unique,
Yes.
is what's going to catch the ears from people from the outside and be like, that's different. And I think we're starting to hear a lot of that these days. And even in your music and the new guys that are coming up, they're borrowing from that past. So I think there's a good positive.
Hey, if I'm to speak to that moment, I remember when we started when Marek started managing Sauti Sol, artists were always sitting in the back. So if you go for like a corporate function, the artist would be in a tent somewhere like far, or actually not.
But it was a wedding.
Tent.
Remember, it was a wedding at Sovereign Suites.
Yeah, it was a wedding,
and we were sitting by the place where they were cleaning dishes.
Yeah, and it was sitting by the place where the dishes were being cleaned. And Marek was like, "No, man, you guys are supposed to be superstars. Like, why are you guys sitting here?" And then we did more gigs, and we did a gig at Tribe Hotel.
Yeah,
and it was a dinner, and you're playing at a dinner, and then after guys eat, listening to you, you go to the back and they serve you ugali and skuma and nyama for dinner, and that was just so fucked up.
Yeah,
in all levels, And Marek changed all of that, and I realized also that when I was in it, I didn't know I deserved better. I didn't know better, and Sauti Sol has helped change the game in so many different ways for artists getting what they deserve, in terms of how they're treated, in terms of how they're paid, in terms of how they're revered. And yeah, man, I'm so grateful for that. That was an amazing thing.
Remember there was that wedding, and you were there performing, like the bride was her like dream for you guys to perform, and we were like, and from that point we went from that cleaning tables at the back to sitting at the high table, because that's what both the bride and groom would want.
Though I didn't want to sit at the high table, man. But Marek was like, no, you're going to sit in front there next to the bride and the groom, because you are artists. Like, that's the place artists are meant to be. And when I look at societies that have advanced, that is where they place art in their lives. Yeah. Like, they place art way up there. Musioka, you've done Homeboys. You're running a record label right now. Mm-hmm. You've done a lot of the artists who are in Ogopa. You're a key player in the industry in Kenya's glory days, so to speak. I think the glory days have always been glory days. My career has always been glory days. But when Kenyans refer to that whole era of glory days that Marek has spoken to right now, like, what do you remember about that time, and what made the glory days the glory days?
For me, every generation has its glory days. So it's never about that particular time that things were working, because if you're still doing the same thing, if you're still in the same industry, that means there's something you're getting out of it.
Yeah.
So why are you saying that was the only glory time? I mean, I've been fortunate enough to live through the era of TED, the Ogopa, the Homeboys era, and now the current era. And every of those generation has a unique point and something to offer. It's like a tree. The 90s sowed the seeds, they created the foundation. The Issa era, the Ogopa era, the Homeboys era, the mid-2000s, that was the first fruits of, what had been laid down. Right now, what we're experiencing is just the regeneration of the fruits.
Yeah.
And that's why the industry is where it is right now. I mean, when I started music in 1997, you could not even imagine doing a podcast. You couldn't even imagine shooting with any, like, all these people in this room are eating off the industry.
Yeah.
The glory days in around 2000 to 2007, that's when we were starting to test the fruits of the success. You're like, wow, this thing can actually work. There's actually money. For me, that was the first time I saw $1 million bob. Not my check, somebody's check.
Yeah.
But I was like, you can get paid for doing this.
Whose check was this?
Yeah, I'm not sure who it was, but
They'll
not follow him.
Years, guys.
It's already passed, bro.
They'll not follow him. He's in the grave.
Oh, man.
Bruce Odhiambo, rest in peace,
Bruce.
brother Bruce.
Yeah, shout out, Baldman.
Shout out.
Yeah, so I saw Bruce being paid 600 G's to do a commercial in 2001. You guys have no idea what 600,000 was.
Into one.
You could literally go to DT Dobby and get a car.
Wow.
It was a lot of money then. So it's from guys like Bruce, Mike, who I saw like these guys were doing this as a business.
Man, tell me about Homeboys and the Rabah Brothers,
Yeah.
because like as someone who has a record label right now,
Yeah.
and I've signed artists, you've signed artists, I really look up to Homeboys and how they've been able to scale,
Yeah.
how they've been able to morph into different things that give different services to the game.
Yeah.
How was your experience working at Homeboys?
For me, Mike Rabah is my biggest mentor. I mean, for me, he's like, in my career, he's taught me literally everything I know about business. Mike, John, and Alf, those are like my guys.
What's so special about them, and how do they do business?
They understood
that makes them
business.
stand out?
You know the problem with being in the arts, and as I'd pointed that in my first pointer, creative people, we have a very enlarged sense of self-importance, which really brings us down. Generally, it's just a big ego. And that's where we get it all wrong.
But don't you think the ego is necessary for the artist to be the artist?
And we spoke about this many times because, you know, when you have an
Ego
artist,
is the enemy.
we had to watch this.
The ego is the enemy.
I don't know how much time we have for funny anecdotes, but that time you came from Germany and you were like, we'll talk about that maybe later. But in terms of dealing with artists, you always have to like understand that there's a thin line between confidence and arrogance.
Yes.
You know, that's the ego situation, right?
Yeah.
There's a thin line. Some people might perceive it as arrogance, but that's because your confidence is much more than they can, than they can fathom. So they might shift it down towards more arrogance. But in order for you to be able to stand in front of 10,000 people, or in like our case in New York, in front of 60,000 people, and perform and give your best, and nobody cares where you just came from, what just happened an hour before, or in your life a week before, or that day. You have to be able to get up there, and that confidence can teeter on arrogance for many people, but I think that's a outwardly how they perceive it, perception. So confidence is very important because nobody can really just pull that off. Not everybody can. Very small amount of people can, and still yet you were nervous. Everybody's nervous. Nervousness is a part of that, right?
My
But you
God,
pull it off
all
because
the
you're
nerves.
confident.
I have nerves thinking about going on stage right now.
Yeah.
Like just thinking about it gives me nerves.
Yeah. I mean, it's, for me, what I learned at that point is you are worth what you negotiate for. It's not about your perceived value. It's not about you. If you negotiate for 10,000, that's what you get paid. If you negotiate for $1 million, you'll get paid $1 million. And you'll be looked at like somebody who asked for $1 million, Bob. The situation where Marek was talking about, you guys should be seated at the front there. I have a problem when people say Kenyans or the corporate world in Kenya doesn't respect art. For me, my experience is the exact opposite.
Wow.
The exact opposite. There's no corporate office I've set foot in and been treated like when I'm Sani. Because I learned that from Mike. You are what you negotiate for. If you negotiate for 100 shillings, they'll treat you like that.
And I agree. You also are treated the way you show up.
Exactly.
The way you, before you show up, how you communicate, and
Completely.
There's a value conversation that we have to have with, I think, our artists. Then,
it's
in how they represent themselves.
Yes.
Because, like, if you want to look like $1 million, then you have to.
completely. And I had signed the artists I work with. I always tell them that. And the ones who have fallen out with, it's because they don't take that as something of importance. Because I tell them, always talk hapo kwa msanii, when you go to this corporate office, that guy is looking at you like a superstar. But there are some things you can say, and there's a way you will talk, you lose him completely. The respect for him dies. And for me, I'm a very big proponent of no artist should sit in a boardroom without a manager. Don't talk for yourself. Let your manager talk. Look bad. Say no through him. A client should never hear you say no. Ever. It's not your work.
These are some of the things that...
Always be I can never allow Brian Nadra or Concordi to negotiate. I will never allow.
But I think you were both a little bit surprised by it. I was also a little bit surprised by it because of what we mentioned in terms of how people look at artists over here in the corporate world, how they treat them and stuff like this. I still, to this day, I see it, to tell you the truth. It's not black and white like that, but majority I see there's an element of people don't really know how to deal with stars, to deal with creators, to deal with artists. Still to this day, there is that that's not a real job.
Which I squarely blame on artists.
Sure, but
Really?
there's a catch-22.
Yes, personally. It's how you carry yourself.
Here's what I think. I think, first of all, I said this before, a society that doesn't put art at the top of its hierarchy, then treats artists like...
But you see, it's because
Trash.
we want to be treated. It's how we want to be treated.
I didn't say artists, I said art. So like, if you just look at Kenya in general, does art dominate our existence?
You know why I beg to differ.
The same way like in
I've seen-
Nigeria.
It doesn't,
Even in
because
Czech Republic, when I'm in Czech Republic, the thing that makes Czech stand out from most, Prague, stand out from most European cities, is just the fact that Prague is full of art. So like art has such high value, and I think because of colonialism and the Moi era and all the things that we have to unlearn and undo, Kenya has never placed art at
But
the
you
top
see,
of its-
Bien, where is art
Okay.
in the human development cycle?
right throughout, man, because that's culture.
I mean, in terms of the hierarchy of needs and wants.
It's for me, it's really the base of culture.
Where is art? Art is everywhere. Art is
it
everything.
is, but you see...
It's nature. You're walking out, a tree looks beautiful, that is art. You're interacting with nature, with the birds, with melodies, with tunes, with sounds.
If
That's
you
art.
had 10 shillings today and you're starving, will you pay to watch
Okay,
a
I see
concert?
where you're going with this, and this is
Or to buy
where
food.
I get where you're going with this. This is true. Like there is priorities that people face, and I know Kenyans
Exactly.
are struggling in many other places, and I generally it is the case. I get you where you're saying. Like there are other priorities, and perhaps art is not right up there. But
Exactly.
you disconnecting art from culture, and I feel
No,
like
I wasn't disconnecting it from culture. For me, it's our priorities in life. Like as a nation, we still sleep hungry, you know.
No, 100%.
So until we solve very basic things, we'll never appreciate art.
We need to move
Because
from the basics.
and you see, and that's why you
And you
tend
need to move beyond politics as well, because if you look,
precisely.
so you were
That
just
thing
saying,
of we have to sort things like food, shelter. Like we need to sort basic things because I mean, all of us here have people who work for them in their homes. As much as I do music, the people who work for me in my house, they'll not buy my music because they can't afford it.
Yeah.
What they want to buy, they want to come to my concerts, but I tell them, nithao. I mean, will I eat or will I go to this concert?
Will I pay school fees?
So we
or will
need
I-
to sort. There's a certain basic human need we need to address.
I have a question though.
Yeah.
In many societies where things have been going wrong politically, socio-economically,
Yeah.
the thing that has really cushioned the people and given them a positive outlook on life and a positive approach that goes to change everything around them is music.
It's art.
Look at
Definitely.
what
I mean,
Mali did in Jamaica, and look
Yeah.
at Nigeria right now. Nigeria is not a country. Okay, they have the numbers, but Nigeria is going through the same problems Kenya is going through socio-economically, even worse.
yeah.
But you see, like, as a people, they are so culturally rooted,
To art. Art in
And that's
Nigeria, art is a unifying factor.
and that's what it is here as well.
and I think that's the connection and disconnection from
Yeah.
your culture. And I don't know what happened here after the Brits or whatever happened after independence. The one example that people tell me about, one of my most incredible countries to visit and cities to visit is Dakar, in Senegal.
Hey, Dakar, yeah.
And these people literally wear their culture on their sleeves, you know. And what my understanding is that the first leader after independence, he invested heavily into bringing and connecting their people back to their culture, which they were divided from
Okay.
for a long time.
Yeah.
And I don't think that happened here necessarily. I don't know if that's what happened here, but that is
It
why they
didn't.
say in Dakar and Senegal, the culture scene, the art scene is bubbling so much. Then there's this connection of Nigerians being connected to the Fela Kuti, the Afrobeat, etc. That's what's yielding this kind of really authentic connection to their creativity and their art today.
Tanzania, I can give an example of Tanzania. In the 70s and 80s, Nyerere had made it mandatory that all organizations have a band. And if you look at all these bands, Lewanyika and the bands
Maroon
that really
Commandos,
ruled, Maroon Commandos was a Kenyan band that actually mirrored Lewanyika.
Yeah.
And Tanzania has had a heritage of loving their music for a very long time.
And so what happened here?
Here we had choirs. So if Moi had a choral approach to music, and we grew up watching choirs on
Muungano.
TV and Mungano choir and Prisons choir, and they sang gospel music. But I'll be honest, man, as a kid, I was so disconnected with those choirs. I didn't feel like they represented anything in art that I felt was, happening right. So Kenya has had a problem with our past that we need to fix. And I don't think it's an either or. I don't think we have to fix the food situation first. Then we fix the art. We fix the food and the art.
Yeah.
Because in terms of policy, there's things that we need to do for us to make sure that our artists are, first of all, just getting the royalties they deserve.
Yeah.
So I know, Musyoka, you've done a lot in the background for policy in this country. Like, you've been a very instrumental figure in CMOs.
Yes.
I'm talking MCSK,
I had my
Camp
stint.
Priest. He had his stint. And I just want you to talk about that for a minute here for us to understand what is MCSK, what is Priest, what is Camp, and why does the public think that MCSK is eating artist money? And what was your experience working there?
The three main collection bodies is we have Prisk. Prisk collects for performers, so all songwriters, people in plays, in dramas, and all that stuff. Then Camp collects for owners of sound recording, executive producers, so record labels are found in there. MCSK collects for authors and publishers, so people who write the music and people who publish the music. I was the chairman of Camp from 2010 to 2014. And that's the time we unified all the three bodies to be able to collect as one organization. We're plagued by a lot of policy issues, especially legal issues. And at the end of the day, the buck stops with the parliament because that's where the laws are created. And even as we speak, there's a very controversial law, Article 35 of the Kenyan Copyright Act, that needs to be addressed. So,
what's Article 35? Is it about the
distribution and ownership and sharing of monies collected by entities, private entities?
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a group of people trying to entrench in laws that are going to affect the owners of copyrights.
But why has it been so difficult over here to just fix this? I mean,
I feel like
what's the problem in the parliament? It's just the buck stops there.
legal. There's something in the US they call it lobbying, but it's just giving MPs money to pass your laws.
Yeah.
Yeah, they legalize.
I don't think
In the
it's
States,
just
they legalize corruption by lobbying.
Calling it lobbying. So when we are not proactive when it comes to those things, and at the end of the day, these things, they need money.
Yeah.
And the person who has the money is the one who pays for these laws to be passed.
Yeah.
And so that's the business side of music that a lot of people don't want to get involved in.
Yeah.
And that is everything. If you don't address that business side of things. So we are lucky that we have a few people who are fighting for our rights, and hopefully it'll go well. I don't want to talk about it a lot because it's still being debated about. You can read about it. It's being gazetted. So policy is very important. And you tend to find that there are a lot of stakeholders who are seated in positions that, they want to control the money. At the end of the day, it's the money they are controlling. There are some laws, if you change and if you implement, some people will hurt. Yeah? So it's just about having people who can fight for it and who can see value in it later, which we really don't have. So when I was at Camp, we did a lot because we had a team that was willing to fight for that. Yeah, there's a team that was willing to fight for that. But you see, again, statute of tenure. Your office time comes and ends. Those clauses, you can't run again. So that team has to leave, completely leave. And then a new team comes in
with new dreams,
new perspective, and new interests. So it becomes like kind of a seesaw. You have a very good year. When Morris was there, it's a very good run for the money. Then a new team comes, they don't share the same ambition and same aspirations as you. And you legally can't go back. You can't run.
Yeah.
Your tenure has expired. So you just have to sit at home, wait until 2 terms pass, then you try and assemble this other team to go back to continue your dream. So there are some legal loopholes that you can't really get past. So by the time you get a team that works, a lot of damage has been done by a team that
didn't want it to work. Yeah. And like, so what's the role of artists in all this lobbying? Because like, how can we lend a voice? And I don't want to say that there's one way to do it. Maybe the Eric Omondi route of going to shout outside parliament is one of them. Maybe lobbying is another one.
Yeah.
But how can we as artists lend our voice and our time to this conversation and be more involved in CMOs? I can tell you the truth, like my kids at the label, I doubt they know anything about CMOs.
You see, it's also lack of interest. Because I remember when I was at camp, we'd ask for AGMs, but you'd find that urban artists never show up.
It's but short-term versus long-term thinking.
Yes.
You know, and that comes down to what a lot of people actually in this industry do, and they make the biggest mistakes. From what I've seen, how people rush releases, how people, don't put, quantity over quality, all these kinds of things. There's a general lack of understanding of the benefit of long term, right? And that's why, because royalties really make sense to you in a compound interest. You're not going to be making this money in the first 3, 5, maybe even 10 years of your career. But maybe after 15, 20 years, you will. And that's what's going to pay your rent. That's what's going to help you pay, bills. That's what can, in many countries around the world where this system has been, it pays for majority of people's expenses, that they've created that work. And now after thousands and millions and billions of streams and purchases, it adds up, right? So there's that disconnect there. What's the role of artists in all of this as well? Where I'm from, for example, and you met my parents, they were, they were in theater.
Marek's folks are actually culture ambassadors for Czech Republic. They have been on the culture scene there for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, they were, during the invasion of the Russians, before the revolution happened in Czech Republic in 91, when we kicked them out again, when the Cold War ended, my mom was in a theater, and the revolution was started by intellectuals, artists, and doctors, educated people generally, people who thought, who think more beyond their just 9 to 5 kind of a thing. And it was them that really started making the difference, making the change, because they had a voice. And that's where it starts. I feel there's a little bit of a fear here as well, because of how the system runs, that a lot of people don't want to. The Boniface Mungis and guys like this, they're a rarity, and see how they get treated. People get a fright from that. They see what happens to them, right? Man. So it's just about a concentrated effort and people coming together and just fighting for their rights, and making that change. And your guys' voices are heard. You can garner people behind you, and we're not fighting for anything crazy here. We're just fighting for people to survive off of a living that they're making, and that being brought for arts to culture, which is the basis of bringing community together, citizenship, and I think that every country needs that. More than
they deserve it, man. Like so, with CMOs and the new generation of artists who are just like, how do I convince a Gengeton artist to get into a CMO conversation, a CMO battle for their royalties? I mean, talk to a Gen Z artist and tell them, bro, itabidi uende figure out his stuff and the way they could make a future for yourself. Because as a label owner now is when I'm actually starting to wake up to the realization that I need to fix that system as well for my label to make sense for me financially.
I mean, the systems work. They're in place already right now.
The systems are in place.
I mean, the systems are in place. It's just...
Are they digital?
Not really. I mean, honestly, let's give them some, flowers, because you cannot compare the systems 10 years ago to what is there right now. Like, as much as they'll M-Pesa you 2,500 shillings, yes, you'll complain it's nothing, but at least we can make it better.
Yeah.
We just need the will and the numbers to go there. Because that's one thing I realized, when the River Road guys are so many, they come and they push their policies.
When you're asking how can you tell your artists? I think, real life examples should work. And it's a constant education. I'm sure you can show them plenty of Kenyan artists that had the biggest hits in the 80s and 90s, etc. Today they are, and we've seen it ourselves, arriving at shows that we try and book them because we're trying to appreciate the past. They arrive in a matatu. And they had the biggest hits. They were the guys at the top. That example, I think, would scare any of these artists, and it doesn't take much. Really, it doesn't take much. You shouldn't even convince you just do it on their behalf. If you're their record label, if you're their manager, you just tell them, listen, read this. Obviously, don't sign a blank thing. This is what we're doing. We're registering you, and don't worry about it. Go and continue making music. You don't have to focus on it. Understand it. Know what it is about. But it's not a treacherous process. You know. So I think real life examples of showing, look, you want to do this now. Do you want to end up, not being able to earn from what you're doing now? Are you going to then be an accountant when you turn 40? Is that what you want to do, or 50? I think
there's been a conversation around large media companies not paying the royalties that they need to pay.
There's that too. Politics.
Politics. And that's a big deal because, like all the media houses are owned by politicians. Yeah. And they just abscond duty. They won't pay.
And you can do nothing.
And you can do nothing about it. But those are the guys who owe the industry like billions in terms of,
Where I'm coming from, I disagree with that statement. You can do nothing. I really do. I mean, it's tough. You might have to face things, but my parents were constantly thrown in jail, harassed. That was how I was growing up.
Jail in Czech Republic and jail in Kenya.
But you know what? That statement, I think, will diffuse all the people that are watching this, the young guys, when you say, we can do nothing about it. I think that's...
I think we can and we should do something, by the way. I need to lend my voice louder, and artists need to lend their voices louder. That's the take home from this. Like Musyoka, actually, thank you very much for the battles you fought on our behalf behind the curtains. I know you're constantly fighting new wars, and every level has its own devils. So thank you for dealing with those devils at that level. Proper. I have a question though. When it comes to masters, explain to the audience what are masters, and how do you monetize your masters?
Well, a master is a degree conferred on somebody after finishing an undergraduate.
Then you get a job.
Well, masters, what are masters? Masters is the final copy of any production, any song. So the body of work that is composed of the lyrics and the music, that is what is called a master. In its mechanical format. Mechanical format could be cassette, vinyl, MP3, WAV file, vinyl,
CD.
I think it was easier understandable in the 90s, when it was like, here's the master. Here's the master. But these days,
now it's digital.
But still, the MP3 file or that WAV file you export from your computer, it's a master.
Yeah.
It's just that it's easy to replicate. WAV is just another, it's a format. It's just it's like producing many vinyls, just quicker, copy paste. But it's exactly the same concept.
And who are the guys involved in the ownership of the master?
So the ownership of the master, the person who owns the master is the person who pays for its production. Yule mse anatoa noti, hii master exists. I paid for the studio time, I paid for your transport, I paid for the lights, I paid for the generator, I paid for the songwriter, I paid for the guitarist.
But did he pay for his education? Did he pay for all the time he's put into it? Did he pay for his artistry? I think that's wrong. I think, just because you paid for it, just because you're in a position where you have money, I think it's taking advantage of the people who bring the talent and the hard work that they develop.
The master is only half the puzzle. It's only half the puzzle.
So it's 50-50. A song is owned. Half masters and the other half is?
You see, at the end of the day, from a legal point of view, the person who paid for the production of that master to exist is the one who owns it. Even if you go to a court of law in the US, right, that's what it stays.
Yeah.
Because you see, you may have the talent, but you don't have the means. And that's why you can buy your masters. Masters have a value. Your talent won't have a value. Kanye West wants to buy his masters. Ameitisha how much? 250 million or something ridiculous. Rihanna bought his masters. She bought all her masters 5 years ago.
Yeah, she did.
She bought all. You see, you can buy it. You see, at the end of the day, the person who is putting the money for you to produce this body of work is just interested in selling to make a profit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, in Soul Generation, my deal with my artists is that after 5 years after my contract with them is over, we can have a negotiation.
Yeah, you can negotiate and buy your masters.
I'm keen.
What you cannot buy is your publishing.
Talk about publishing.
So
one side is masters.
One side is 50% is master, 50% is publishing. So the publishing is now where the songwriters, The guys who write the music, the guys who write the lyrics come in.
Split sheets.
That's where split sheets come in. For me, my advice is that don't own a master with 2 other people, because it becomes very difficult to distribute that master.
Expound.
If I want my music on iTunes and you don't want it on iTunes, you see, you're denying me money.
So a master should be owned by...
It's ideally one person. Let just one person have the master so that they're able to control where it goes.
Or like an entity, like a universal, like a soul
Yes.
generation. You know, like a...
But I've seen Silk Sonic, Bruno Mars and Anderson. The master is owned by 2 companies, Aftermath and I think Atlantic or something.
Aftermath for Nani, for Anderson, yeah.
Yes. So these are the 2 companies that funded. They provided the budget for that project to come out. So they own the master. So I'm sure there's a contract that lists what they can do and what they can't do. But ideally, you want to be one entity.
Yes.
It's the best situation.
What about publishing? Like, what is publishing?
Publishing...
I talk about publishing a lot. I've understood it, but
Yeah.
I feel like my kids haven't. And the younger generation needs to understand what publishing is, because that's where the money is at.
Money is in publishing, completely. Because publishing, you can't buy out publishing.
Again, it's long-term, mid to long-term money.
It's long-term money. You can be offered a deal to license your publishing or your share to somebody for a period of time. But it's impossible to buy it out completely. So the publishing now is when you write the lyrics and when I write the music. When those 2 come together, that's the publishing share of things.
Yeah.
When my music is licensed to be used, maybe, for example, a corporate wants to use my song, they can choose to pay for the master or the publishing. You can choose what you want to pay for. Very smart companies opt to pay for publishing and keep the master away. Because if I'm paying $1 million to use your song, and that fee covers a master and a publishing share. I can tell you, fine, me I only want the publishing share. So I'll only pay half a million.
Yeah, even we're learning it.
No, it's not. There's no confusion.
So,
When, for
Jameson
example,
want to use Mbwembwe.
yes,
Let's go.
if they want to use Mbembe, they have given you $1 million shillings. They can be smart enough, and this is where you have to be very careful with these contracts. Some companies just say we are paying, so they'll come and negotiate with you and tell you, fine, it's $1 million shillings
For the song.
But please make sure when you're negotiating, you are quoting either publishing or master, because they'll tell you it's $1 million shillings for the works. And in their clause, there'll be master and publishing. 2 weeks later, they'll come and tell you, we only want the publishing share. So we'll only pay you half the money. They'll go to So Fresh, to River Road, and recreate a new master for 100,000 bob.
So this explains why then Taylor Swift has re-recorded her albums. This explains why artists abroad re-record
When you
their
sample,
music.
they only clear publishing. They recreate the sample. Kanye West never uses the master.
He recreates.
He recreates the entire recording afresh.
So you only pay for the
You
publishing.
only pay for the publishing.
I was recording a song with an artist called Rosa, I think a week ago, and we had sampled a guitar.
Yeah.
Actually, not even that. Let me use Nico Sawa. Nico Sawa has a trumpet sample from Maroon Commandos.
Cheche something.
Yeah. And the payment then, instead of being allocated 100%, the payment should be for the publishing side of things. And then we didn't sample anything from that song. We just sampled the tune that was now played afresh. So playing that afresh,
You re-recorded it.
re-recording it,
Yes.
means that we don't have to pay for master rights. We just pay for publishing.
Yeah.
Okay. James. I'm just like, all these years, what have I been doing? Shooting in the dark.
I was in such a situation with an advertising agency. They wanted to trick me like that. But I was like, you guys, man. So they come 2 weeks later, they're like, we'll only pay for this. Can we? I told them no. The negotiation was for the full body of works. Master and publishing. Yeah. Companies that own the master have a publishing company. Yeah,
So are you advising then Soul Generation to have Soul Generation Publishing?
definitely.
100%.
Okay.
Like for me, Decimal publishes all its masters.
As a songwriter,
Yes.
I could sign a publishing deal with Universal,
Yeah.
and
It's not. It's
and
the legal term of it. Yes, you say you've signed a publishing deal, but it's actually a co-publishing. Yeah, it's always a co something. It's never a full.
It's never full publishing.
No, it's always a co something.
Okay, and
Yeah.
I've seen what happens in the West is like a label gives you an advance
Yeah.
as a songwriter to go and write music, and then they recoup it from your publishing.
Yes.
Do you think that's a model that could work here in Kenya as well if we figure out our?
Yeah,
how-
of course. I
how
mean,
we
it's. But you see, nowadays you don't just recoup from publishing. It's a 360 deal. You recoup from when they cough and make
Performance,
money.
Your deal would be the
Yeah,
same,
cut.
right? From
Yeah.
performances,
Yeah.
endorsement deals,
Everything.
publishing.
Yeah.
You know, because before the record labels, you know, as you said, they, you know, now it's much easier copy paste. Before then,
Yeah.
they had to physically
Yeah.
Take your
print
album.
and then put it on something on a
Yeah.
plane and send it here and there, right?
Yeah.
And that's why they were taking 90%. These days, they just send it. They still take 90% though. It's a little bit like, okay, shouldn't be that way anymore,
Yeah.
right?
And that's why you have, like, when you see albums printed pre 2005, 2006, you are signed to Universal in America to distribute in America, Polygram to distribute in Japan, another company to distribute in another territory, simply because of the power of printing press.
Yeah,
But nowadays, you just sign one deal,
it's digital and it's
it's
global.
digital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so guys, I hope you've gotten your gems from that. And if you have any more questions, you can ask them on the comment section, and then I'll call Musioka to clarify. I'll be answering questions by the way on the
Yeah.
comment section proper. Marek, man, you've come from an industry in the West, South Africa, and the time you lived in LA. You've seen legacy groups, legacy artists, legacy bands. You've seen the Stones. I was with Marek one time in Germany. Marek went to watch the Rolling Stones in a park somewhere. The ticket was 450 euros. That's 45k.
I watched Justin Timberlake.
That's 45k, yeah.
They're about
Yeah.
I watched Justin Timberlake for free.
for free. Sawa. Kenya style. Wakati mnapenda kuingia event bure, mtaje hiyo mchezo.
And we'll talk about ticketing as
We're
well.
talking about
By the way,
ticketing,
Soulfest,
man.
I was a student.
Yes.
I went as an intern.
Oh, you're an intern. That's fantastic. But you've come from an industry where there's just longevity in musicians. There's longevity in art. What do you think an artist who's watching this can do to achieve a certain level of longevity? Because even when I started working with you, I didn't quite figure that part out. I think now I've understood myself enough to know as an artist, the older I get, the better I get. But the music industry has been given a look.
You did get it, actually. You got it right from the beginning. Because I remember at the beginning what we said is, you know, we did our shares and stuff like this. We divided how we're going to be making the money. And we agreed right at the beginning was like, guys, let's not do what everybody else does. And this comes back to short-term and long-term thinking. And we said, let's not, with the money that we're making, because we started making money fairly quickly, actually. We even like doubled our performance fees and started, you know. So we started making money fairly quickly during that time. And you guys were already working on that before I joined you, but we kind of solidified it together.
We scaled it.
Was, you know, we said, let's put that money, even 80 or 90% of it if we can. Let's not focus about buying a car or a house right now. We're young, the career is long, should be long. Let's put all the initial money back into the business. So you got it right from the beginning, and that's what I think it's all about. The people that think short term and immediately buy Benz and this, etc., and chains and blah, blah, blah. There's a certain element of showbiz, sure, I get it. But putting your money back into your craft, and that's why you are where you are today. That's why you have longevity. That's why you are sitting here. You have Soul Generation Records. You have your own, you know, solo project. You're doing this podcast. You're doing all of these things, or vlog, because you were able to invest into your early career and you had that foresight. And I'm so happy that you guys were the guys that I ended up working with that had that foresight. And that's why you've lasted all this time, and that's why you will last forever. And, you know, you will be,
So
I'll be paying 450 fucking euros to go and see you in Germany, you know, after the Stones are gone, because, God damn, these guys are old, man. And you know that the highest highest grossing touring act still
Yes.
today. It's not Beyonce. It's the Stones
It's
to
the
this
Stones.
day.
To this day, yeah, these guys are raking in hundreds of millions of dollars on touring
Exactly.
alone.
So it's about that. It's about hard work. It's about, it's about putting in the work, working smarter, not harder, ideally smarter and harder, and investing into your business and making sure that you're making timeless music. We talk about that always. That you're not necessarily, giving into current fads so much. And what's happening? You stick to your lane. You invest
Business.
into your business.
Business.
You stay true to yourself. You don't play for what people want to hear. You play what's in you. And if you are unique, that makes you original because you're playing who is you, know. And I think a lot of artists go through that in their careers, like a bell curve shape. If you stick to that, your music will be timeless. You'll be original. You'll be unique, and you will be appreciated and consumed post-mortem, forever. That's
wow.
longevity.
Musika, what are your views on longevity? Because now in Kenya, I don't have an artist who is 60, who is still like, in the game. America has it. Nigeria has it. There's an artist called King Sunny Ade, who is like a high life artist. King Sunny Ade, I watched this guy, and we were in Lagos for the Afrima Awards a couple of years ago, and his guitar was being auctioned. And it was auctioned for, I think, $170,000. Like someone bought it. Nigeria also has a deep heritage of just many artists we don't know about. Like, from your view, from your point of view, like, do you think Kenya can achieve that, and how? What are your views?
We can, but you can only be long if you plan long term. Yeah. And you have to look at the business side of things. And as Marek has said, you get lost in the hype and the fad and you lose focus. Yeah. But you have to make sure that you look at the business side of things. It's a business I'm running. I mean, I didn't start music so that nikifail nitaenda kuwa mkulima, I don't have a side hustle. Yeah. Yes, you can use your money you make from your music to do other businesses and other things, but your core business is that. There are people who are going to university to study to be accountants, to be engineers forever. Not to be an engineer until I'm 35.
And
then, I mean, for me, that's how I've made it work.
Yeah.
Because this is my 24th year doing music.
24th year.
Yes.
Damn.
And surround yourself with the right people.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right? I mean, because a lot of the people that you might surround yourself with that's why it's important to keep in mind the people that were with you right from the beginning.
Yeah.
The Anikos in your guys' case, the Moriasis,
The Mareks, the Musikas.
the people who have been there before you guys were famous, right? Because they loved your music, they loved you, so they came there for the right reasons, right? And we've learned that through our careers. We've made mistakes in that regards, but hindsight 2020, right? And you learn these kinds of things, so it's good to appreciate that, because those are the people that will make sure that you don't fall into those fads and fall short on these short-term kind of, we all are susceptible to this, right? So being surrounded by the right people and having the right team, I think, is also going to protect you and make sure that you stay on your path.
Definitely. I mean, it's all about focus, but you must have a long-term plan. I mean, I dream of long-term. When I plan 5-10 years from now. I don't plan for next month. Yes, you have plans for next month. You have your short-term, mid-term, and long-term plans. Yeah, and every successive year you go and tick. You're like, okay, I've done this. Move on. Have I achieved this?
This is helpful in any career.
Yeah, you need to plan.
But I have a question. Like, for me, I'm now 33, and my age in the industry is a connecting age where I feel like I'm connecting my dad's generation and my parents.
Yeah,
and I'm connecting them with the youngins.
yeah,
To the youngins, I'm a old person in the game. To Musioka, who viene ameanza hapa juzi nimemwona akija na uniform Simba kwa reception. But for me to stay relevant also, there are things that I think I have to do in terms of tapping into the sonics of the younger generation.
Yeah.
Because as sometimes I'm watching a rapper and they're rapping and I feel like they're outdated. So they could be rapping sense, they could be authentic in what they're saying, but they're outdated. Like you can feel an age, an age gap of sorts an aging in the expression.
Yeah.
So how do you become Jay-Z? Because Jay-Z has just been rapping for forever, and he never feels like he's an older.
But you see, he's very careful with also what he raps and who he collaborates with. You know, you can say, I want to be in touch with the young guys. Like, please allow me to throw shade, but I see this with our politicians. They want to look young and hip. Then they go and do childish things. You know, they just look ridiculous. It backfires. So you have to be very clear how you target yourself to the young people.
Yeah.
You know, because you're coming to them from a point of authority. They look up to you. So don't damn yourself so much that they're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, this is uncool.
Like, you know, what are you trying to do? Like, I see some YouTube clips of politicians and comedians, and I'm like, really?
Especially comedians.
Really?
You know what I'm talking about.
So there's nothing wrong with trying to reconnect with the young guys, but also act your age, you know.
Yeah.
Act your age.
Seeing your experience.
Dress like your age, you know. Don't damn yourself so much that you look like a clown.
You know, be open to collaboration.
Exactly.
Still
Like,
be open to learning
look
new
at
things.
when Jay-Z is
going out of your comfort zones
Yeah.
and stuff like this. So collaborate with the young guys. Collaborate with the old guys. It's art and culture is all about that, right?
Yeah.
It's-
Again, we'll go back to Jay-Z is my hero. He looks like Mike Rabba anyway. Jay-Z, he works with Meek Mill. But look at how he carries himself. When he doesn't dumb himself down. He doesn't.
He comes as Jay-Z.
Okay,
comes
but
as
lately
Jay-Z.
Jay-Z sometimes I have to say next to Beyonce looks like a teenager the way he dresses on his head these days. I'm not going to judge, but it's more of a joke. But yes, it is correct. Just
I don't
stay
know,
true
man.
to.
That's what I'm saying. Like, is there one way to look when you're
It's a
60?
joke.
No, you can't. I mean, you'll compromise some things, but don't compromise too much that you look like a clown, you know.
Okay.
Don't try too hard.
Yeah, don't try too
Don't
hard.
try too hard. Just do you.
Yeah.
Hey, that has to be my biggest fear as an artist. Where I'm gonna get to a point where my expression may not be, the delivery of my expression may not be going through, simply because I may be out of touch.
Yeah, out of touch. That's the thing. So don't be out of touch. It's
Don't be
part
out
of
of
your
touch
job
as
not
well,
to be
yeah.
out
Yeah.
of touch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's important for artists to always be on the pulse of the people.
I mean, I don't know. Definitely Aaron would know who Tony Bennett is.
I'm not Tony Bennett, the
okay.
jazz guy.
He's 94. He's just done a concert with Lady Gaga.
Yeah,
Actually,
Lady Gaga is done.
the album
Amy
Bold
Winehouse.
Men, the album Bold Men Love Better
Yeah.
is inspired by Lady Gaga's collaboration with Tony Bennett.
kidding.
Yes. Because I saw Lady Gaga do a pop concert in a stadium where she's dressed up in all that crazy Gaga monster stuff. And in another night, in a ballroom, dressed singing jazz with Tony Bennett.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, first of all, that's an amazing retirement package
Yeah.
she's built for herself. Because she's taken all of Tony Bennett's audience and put them in a room,
Yeah.
multiple tours. They have Grammys together. And then also Lady Gaga, every time Tony starts to sing, Lady Gaga's price goes up. And likewise, every time Aaron starts to play,
Yeah.
Beyonce's price goes up. So like I really modeled the album or the thought
nice.
to do a jazz project from Lady Gaga and Tony Bennett.
So you've seen his collab with Amy Winehouse? and-
Yeah, I've seen it.
I was in New York around that time
What?
when that was happening.
I'm going to pick you up.
Yeah, so for me, like Tony Bennett is an artist I really respect. Like he's kept it together for 70 years.
And we just came back from Durban.
70.
So yeah, he's been doing.
We just came back from Durban and the whole Canucks thing and the whole
Can you really
IIT.
explain to guys what we were doing in Durban?
Yeah. So we just came back from Inter-Africa Trade Fair, basically, which was connecting and trying to. This is a follow-up to. I'm not going to remember the name of the pact, but all African countries coming together to kind of start working on a free trade agreement, right? Because that's the biggest issue on the continent. It's so rich and diverse, but it makes it very complicated. The laws to work together, transfer money, etc. It's very expensive and complicated, right? So there's 24 countries, I think, at this point, out of the 54 or so have signed. So now it's been ratified. So now it's starting, and this this conference was about bringing these countries together, and making sure that we can work together. So many countries were represented there, from Africa, from Ivory Coast to Senegal to Tanzania to Kenya, etc. You guys were there to perform. I was there speaking on a panel about management, branding, and representation. And then there were all these, typical conference stalls and people talking together from the entire continent. So, the whole purpose of that is collaboration. It's just such an important, source of growth and relevance. And, so I think that speaks to the artists as well. It's about collaborating, which what creates new forms of art, which creates new forms of magic.
Yeah, and
I
look at what the power of collaboration has done to Gengeton. Amazing.
Those kids have worked
Collaborations are just changing the industry.
I actually think in Africa, we trade more in culture in culture and music and fashion than we do
in goods,
in commodities and services. It's very difficult for a Nigerian fan to buy Sauti Sol merch. The process of how he's going to get that merch.
But they can consume the music,
But they can consume the music. The music, goes everywhere. Music is omnipresent.
Yeah.
And it fills all kinds of spaces. Marek, I just want you to speak to management. Because I think when I look at the Kenyan music industry, one of the places where we're really struggling is on the management side. And there's the will to manage, but there just isn't the knowledge.
And that was the same.
A lot of the things you did instinctively are global standard.
But instinctively, and I'll take you to that, and that's what my dad said to me. He was like, my dad was a manager, because it's actually a career, being a manager.
So your dad was a manager as well?
But he was a manager, it comes across not music.
All right.
My mom was a manager in the theater. So my dad was a manager at a company, which is a media company. Manager of Doshi Steel, for example. That's a job, being a manager. And that's why you see managers go from AT&T to Safaricom to EABL. As a manager, it's a specific skill that you need to develop, right? And my dad told me, you can be a good manager and you can be managing a group of schools, you can be managing a toothpaste factory, and you can manage a band. And I was like, okay, I'm trying to understand that, because management is a specific skill. It's a people skill. It's being able to work with people. You don't even have to know what you're doing. I didn't know what I was doing when I joined you guys. I wasn't in the music industry. Yes, it took me some time to learn, but it wasn't such a long, steep learning curve, because management is really about, and specifically if we talk about the arts now, what's very important, and a lot of people ask me, like, how do I find a good manager? Who do I look for? It's really about having both of your hemispheres connected, because they oftentimes talk about the creative one is the left one, and then the right one is for spreadsheets and business and accounting and numbers, right? So what you should ideally look for a manager is somebody who connects both, because in my team, they oftentimes say, like, let Marek switch gears, because I go from a creative meeting, we're developing a music video concept for one of our artists. Then I have to go and meet the accountant. We need to have a look at this, the cash flow of the company currently, if we can afford to shoot the video. Then I have to have a meeting with legal the next half an hour, etc., to discuss the contracts and masters and who's paying for what. So you're switching gears, and oftentimes between the hemispheres, if you want to divide it like that as people discuss it. So you want to find somebody who can switch both of them on, somebody who doesn't necessarily know a lot about a little, but a little about a lot. I think those are the kind of things that are really important in management.
Gotcha. Say that again.
So it's not necessarily, there's two types of ways to look at it. Specializations, like people who are doctors, or neurosurgeons, they know a lot about a little, like a specialization. And then managers generally, I tend to find, should know a little about a lot, because they have to switch between, and it's about working with people and getting the best out of people. That's what management really is. I wasn't always the best at it, but I've learned as well, and that's something that you have to learn as a manager as you grow. It's not about you. It's not about the product so much. It's about the people that you surround yourself with that make, a company is people, a record label is people. It's the people that you're going to have there. And as a manager of that, or as an executive CEO of that, your job is to understand a little about all of the stuff. So you need to be versed in accounting, legal, you need to be able to read a contract, you need to be able to go on set, look at the footage and be like, the lighting is off, and all of that stuff that we used to do. But it's about making sure that the people that you surround yourselves are the specialists, the people in this room, specialists in terms of sound and recording and camera, and so those are the people that will make this podcast a success. And in terms of it being the biggest issue, Mr. Easy was on that panel in Joburg, in Durban, where we just were, and even Oskido, all of them said the same thing. The biggest issue on the continent is lack of management, right? And that's frankly why I wanted to start ACE, because I wanted to groom managers, because I saw that throughout and I've seen that gap happen over there. And the issue is that why I was able to start, because the industry doesn't attract professionals of the level, of a certain level, to be able to take an artist higher.
We had a problem.
It attracts people who... it doesn't attract professionals, not professional managers. Yeah, professional managers would rather work in corporate where they get a regular income, because they see the income isn't as regular in this business, and it will take some time. The reason why I was able to start working with you guys maybe at the beginning, because I had my company back then, ACE, or Africa Centric at that point. And I had a business going, so I wasn't pressed for money, and I loved your guys' passion. I loved our camaraderie. I loved our friendship. And I was like, whatever we do, if we sell toothpaste or run a bunch of schools, we'll do it together and we'll be good at it, because we worked off of each other well. And I really enjoy that. So we started, and I wasn't pressed at the beginning for money, which I think it's not everybody has that, benefit, or has that opportunity. So I was able to come and work with you guys. And at a certain level, I didn't have to worry about, for the first 6 months or maybe a year, making income. I'm not saying that that's how you should look for a manager, but it doesn't attract people who need to be making money, because the industry is coming from a scene slowly into an industry. It's quite difficult. A lot of people don't understand it. There's things like publishing, collection agency and stuff that doesn't really work, doesn't really support you. A lot of the corporates and ads over here, like in the States or in Europe, they don't use your music as much for ads, because they know they can get it for a better price, and they don't see the importance of connecting your current culture to speak to their audiences. That's really changing a lot. I'm working with a lot of brands and companies that are seeing it. So they're seeing the value of paying, 6, 7, 8, 9 times higher than for a sample that they can take off of online, and rather have your voice and your music, because there is a certain element of connecting the brands, of what they're trying to sell and how they're trying to speak to their audiences. Marketing over here is developing as well, right? It's not just with Safaricom, everything is going to be green. It doesn't have to be that way. And I think the audiences are developing and wanting more as well. So, it's management is a big issue, because a lot of professionals would rather choose a more established industry. They'll have pressures from their families, like you had as well. Like, you're working where? Like, the amount of slack that I got even just from my friends, and I thought they were...
Imagine, I remember Marek's friend asking him, what are you doing with these guys? Like, where is this headed?
So it's about, management is an issue there. And if you're looking for managers, we discussed what you need to look for. And for managers out there
what are the key things to look out for in a manager? For an artist, and you want management, like, what's the key thing?
So like we discussed, you really want somebody who
left and right side of the brain, believes in your craft.
100%. You're going to spend a lot of time together, bro. If we combine the tours and studio and offices and meetings, I've spent more time with you than I spent with anybody else really during those 6 or 7 years. We did that a lot, right? That's why a lot of people sometimes are wondering why we're not hanging out in Nairobi all the time as well. We were just like, dude, we just spent literally 30 days in the same hotel in different places around the continent, right? Let us also see other friends. So you're going to spend a lot of time with that person. So you definitely need to make sure that you see eye to eye. It doesn't mean that you're always going to get along. Matter of fact, you want to have you don't want to have yes men around you. Yeah. You don't necessarily want your biggest fan to make him your manager. You don't want that, because you need that person to be a devil's advocate in your career, to push you into places that you might not be comfortable. We've had plenty of those. I think sometimes if people came to our meetings, I'd be like, guys are breaking up right now. We used to fight. We used to argue, because it's passion. And you need somebody who's passionate, and coming into it for the right reason. So it's all of these more characteristics that you need to consider in choosing the right manager, because it's one of the most important and the most intense relationships you're going to have.
Also, from my experience, I've seen artists abroad, at home, and away. Like in West Africa, are managed by family. I noticed like Wizkid is managed by his wife, Burna Boy is managed by his mom. And Marek and I have had extensive moments of hanging out with Burna Boy and his family.
Yeah.
And it's a family. Burna Boy is a family business.
Yeah, it's a family business.
Burna Boy's mother is,
A lot of people- yeah,
is his manager. His sister.
But they come from management royalty. Her
Exactly.
dad, his grandfather.
Yeah, his grandfather was Fela Kuti's manager.
Yeah.
And therefore Burna Boy's manager is his mom, and his sister is also part of the team. And it's pretty much a team's effort. And when I look at it like that, also I want to bring on the table trust. It's very difficult to find somebody who you can trust wholeheartedly in the game. And that's one thing that I've always had with Marek. Like, we always had a trust relationship. And if you're looking out for a manager, it must be somebody you can trust, because money is involved, contracts are involved. And as an artist, you want to be able to create without having to think, are my finances okay? Are people negotiating on my behalf in the right ways? But Musioka, like, you've managed, produced, and you've done the whole 360 for different acts. What is your biggest hurdle when working with artists from a management perspective?
Ego.
Mm-hmm. Ego.
Yeah. The ability for somebody to humble themselves enough to accept mistakes and to accept to be guided.
Having a teachable spirit.
Yeah. Because there's a point your career grows so big that you think you've made this far on your own. You start forgetting that there are other cogs in the wheel that keep this machine turning.
It's a team sport.
Yeah, it's a team sport. So you start to feel like I'm here because of my own strength.
What can we talk about, because we're on management, what can we talk about in negotiations? Because that's where...
But can we also, before we get there, sorry, because the question is always what an artist should look for in a manager. I think it's also important for a lot of people that are watching this, I think.
What a manager should look for
what a manager is looking for, in an artist as well. I think it's a 50-50, right? Because...
What are you looking for, Marek?
So, what I'm looking for, and I've learned it partially from working with you guys, what I'm looking for is same way, the relationship, you need to really respect, appreciate, enjoy working with that person, because you're going to be spending a lot of time with that person. You want to look at somebody who is thinking, long term, all the things that we discussed, somebody who sees beyond just the paycheck. There's a lot of artists in the industry that do it for the wrong reasons. They do it for the fame, they do it for the women, they do it for the influence. So you also want to find people that oftentimes do it for the art, for the right reasons as well. You need to really understand the person and get to know them so that you can see their characteristics, because oftentimes that way you need to have a look at less, resumes and things like this, and look more at who the person is like. Kindness, authenticity. Authenticity is so key. Really authenticity is probably the most important thing, because that, as we said, leads to uniqueness, originality, and sustainability and longevity, right? So it's about all these things. And you oftentimes see in managers, when they have their first success that they build their careers on, not necessarily Scooter Brown, he's an exception to that rule, but many managers then go to really what they believe is now art. And they have a moment where they slump because they are like, this is actually, I've learned on this and I want to focus on what I believe is art. Not oftentimes commercially successful, because, pop and all of these kind of things that are more commercially successful are a little bit different from that perspective. But yeah, I think managers really need to make sure that they have what it takes, that they're willing to go into understanding this new business and understanding the person that they're working with and all these things that we just mentioned. Yeah, so important.
I mean, I would completely agree with him, because you also want an artist who stands out. You don't want somebody who is a copy of somebody else. And because when you're a copy of somebody else, you'll always be compared to that person. The copy is never, they say imitation is the best form of compliment, but still, you need to have your own authentic and your own unique stand and your own unique sound, your own unique characteristics. Yeah, for example, like the way, if right now I hear Sauti Sol or Soul Generation project, I automatically know. The Soul Generation.
And when I met you guys, I just didn't meet anybody else like you guys. It was a pretty straightforward thing. I was like, the way you work together, the way you are as individuals, I was like, wow, I could, I'll do whatever with these guys.
Yeah, because identity is very important. You need to have, people need to associate you with something. Yeah.
I've been in the game now for how many years?
15?
15.
15, 16?
Yeah, 15 actually. And throughout, you said life is a negotiation. How do artists who don't have managers negotiate for themselves? I know an artist in Kenya who does this. I wouldn't say names. He has 2 phones. So when you call him, you're like, hello, niaje, nataka kubook for gig, acha nikupe number ya manager. Then he gives you the number for his second phone. And then he picks up with another voice. Wewe, sema bwana. And he negotiates in his alter ego. So artists who are negotiating.
Not everybody is like that though, right? There's Puff Daddy, there's P Diddy, there's these guys that, are more business, because as well, artists are not just this hemisphere. It cuts across the board. So some artists are good at managing their careers, right? They have what it takes. They've honed that as a skill. They've developed it and they worked on it, right? But for those that and majority of artists are not like that. Majority.
I wouldn't call Puff Daddy an artist.
Yeah, he's more
Mr. Easy.
He's a businessman. Mr. Easy.
Mr. Easy
is more. Exactly.
Those are businessmen.
Yeah.
I mean, they are straight up businessmen. They'll make the decision, but they have a team. Jay-Z, the same thing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Jay-Z negotiates with Titi. There's a guy called Titi.
So, but those are those exceptions, right?
There are few.
But
few. When you look at their career, they are businessmen. I mean, their business acumen is so strong than their musical.
50 Cent as well.
Precisely.
So
music for them it's a compliment. It's a value-added service. I'll bring
it's
business
how they
for
gain
you.
Influence.
Yeah.
So they can market their product in many ways, right? But not to take it away from the artistry because they're also artists.
No,
but
the artists, yes.
Majority who are not that way, to answer that question, because that's probably what they're listening for, is you just have to do that work at the beginning. Yeah. Nobody's going to come and give you something at any given time. I mean, like you guys did that at the beginning.
Yeah.
Also, when you're starting, you're not negotiating with Safaricom.
Yeah,
so you don't need.
Yeah,
but the moment those guys come onto the table, they're coming with a team of lawyers and managers who have experience, who know how to read clauses.
Yeah.
By the time you're getting to that point, you need also somebody in your team who can speak that language.
It's true.
When you're starting, you're negotiating with people.
But let's focus on them when you're starting. When you're starting, it's really you just got to do the work, and that's what separates the boys from men. That's what separates the kids from adults. That's what separates the success from non-success stories.
Yeah.
Some people might be unlucky during that time, but if you're really dedicated to what you do, you will spend those hours and that time to read a contract, speak to your friend who is a lawyer, speak to, it was your network of your friends, people who came to your gigs at the beginning that advised you at the beginning, and then they built into a careers, and now they have their own careers.
It's true.
Now they have their own businesses. Yeah. So it's about looking into your inner circle. Don't necessarily look at your, start maybe with family. Within your network, if you look, everybody will find there's a guy who he's a lawyer, or he's studying, or he's in law school. Yeah. This person, he's really good with, he's done some recordings, he's playing. So you can find those ways. It's just how dedicated you are and how what's the word? How dedicated you are to what you want to become.
Actually, Sauti Sol's inception, all my contracts to date have been handled by one lawyer who is a boy of mine from the hood. Muriasi nilitoka naye Ronga. We've made our mistakes along the way, but we've grown.
Yeah.
Anyiko wrote the first Sauti Sol press release ever.
Yeah.
And Anyiko has always been there, for us in terms of PR. In good and bad times, it's been a good experience. So that's not about negotiating. The next thing I wanted to talk about is Kenya, in terms of where do we stand in the world in terms of music. I feel like after COVID happened and I started to go out to the world, I went to London, I went to SA recently with Marek. I feel like we're missing the bus, guys. And I'm genuinely tired of Sauti Sol being the only export. And when we get there, Marek, you've been with us at the MTV Awards. It's only us. And then there's 10 Nigerian acts. And I would like for us to have 10 Sauti Sols. Are we able to replicate Sauti Sol's success? I don't want Sauti Sol to be an outlier. I want us to be able to do this thing tenfold.
It's possible. Mm-hmm. I did it with P-Unit.
Yeah.
I know it's a very possible thing.
You recorded, produced, and managed P-Unit.
And sold P-Unit to the world.
And sold it to the world, yes.
we used to go for those shows. The MTVs nominated. The Diamond was
Everything.
curtain raising.
Imagine, by the way,
Yeah, so I mean, it's doable, but I totally get where you're coming from. You can't do it after a certain point. You're like, am I the only one who is doing this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think where I'm headed with this question is, where does our sound fit in the world?
I don't. It's not an issue of.
And this is not about what's the Kenyan sound.
Yeah.
I think we
Yes.
agree. The Kenyan sound is gengeton. The Kenyan sound is a sound that has been largely accepted by the populace.
Yeah.
Gengeton has been accepted by the populace. We can say Rumba has been accepted by the populace.
Yeah.
That's great too.
For me, if you ask me how we got to where we got with P-Unit, it was purely pushing on the business and the marketing side. Like, we invested heavily on that. Because if people don't know about you,
When people can
what's
see you,
the
they can
point?
bless you.
It's that simple. And it's the same case with you guys. I mean, I worked with you guys in Live and Die. And when I was doing that album, I felt like I was with P-Unit version 2. You know, I was like,
Been there, done
this
that.
is the dream. I mean, this is how it should be done. Like, this is how you record. This is how you plan. This is how you execute. And I was like, it's just a matter of time. These guys just blow up. I mean, and I saw it. And there's a formula. There's a formula. But how many people are willing to put in the time, the effort, and the resources?
But I
and
want
the
to talk about
research?
quality. I want to talk about quality here.
You see, quality
In terms
is...
of production for a little, because I go to Durban,
Yeah.
I go to Pretoria, I listen to Mapiano,
Yeah.
I listen to calm music in SA, and that shit slaps.
I mean, that's
infrastructure.
It's
That's
infrastructure.
a scene turning into an industry. That's
Yeah.
money. That's these people being
Yeah.
able
Yeah.
to, with what they're getting paid, buy better equipment, and so that is just the natural progression. That's why it
It's
slaps
something
over there,
that
because the
time-
industry has been professionalized over there for
periods, yeah.
decades.
And you see also
True.
there's...
These countries have Grammys, man.
because they have the infrastructure.
Yeah.
That is the very difficult thing. But thank God, technology has made this a lot easier. When in the 90s you wanted to record a record at that quality that you wanted to match Justin Bieber's quality at this point, you would have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Totally.
Today, you can relatively, for general audiences who will not tell the difference really, that you recorded in your mother's basement on an equipment that cost you $3,000, right? Something that's completely astrologically different. So thank God that happened. Technology has made this possible. The flip side of that is now everybody's recording out of their mother's bedroom. So you need to fight a lot harder. And that's where branding and marketing, and that comes in a lot more important than before, right?
Yes.
But in terms of have we missed the bus? We've missed the bus, but thank God this bus is on a circular track.
Okay.
Right? So we're gonna catch that bus once we're ready. Eventually, we'll catch that bus, and it's just a matter of time, you know. And I think we're getting there right now, you know.
Yeah, I worry for the state of mind of my children. By my children, I mean like Gengeton and Kina Benso and Kina Mviri, when they're writing. Because like when you're in Kenya, you will write for Kenya. But I don't think Rema writes for Nigeria.
Now, I was going now to talk about the songwriting process. Because I remember when you were writing the P-Unit, Kare was number 1 in Africa for 6 weeks. I have the statistics. Yeah.
It was madness.
When we were writing music, we were not writing for Kenyans. We were writing music for the world. With influence from here. And that I was going now to the second stage whereby how we write music is very important. I do a lot of stuff for BBC and I consult with them a lot. For every one Kenyan song sent, there are 50 Nigerian songs. And the reviewing committee let me not say names, but 4 weeks ago, a Kenyan song came out, a very big song in the market. It was in the review committee at 1 Extra. The guy asked me, dude, what the fuck is this you've sent us?
It's probably Edu. He was like, what the hell is this?
I mean, they're like, we want to you have a Kenyan who can make decisions for you here. But what you're sending me, he has bosses, he reports to people.
Yeah, he reports to people.
So it's not like here, I don't know how stations here operate, but Shafiq can wake up and play a song today. Out there, it doesn't work like that. It has to go through somebody.
It's a process.
It's a process.
Yeah.
So he's like, dude, when I send your songs, they're all rejected. He's like, what is this?
It's a quality thing.
It's a quality, it's a songwriting, it's a style issue.
So here's what I learned from my trip to SA the other day. Sauti Sol has always written and produced everything that we do. And actually, by virtue that we are a group, we've always had the energy of bouncing off one another's ideas in the writing, in everything. We've also involved other songwriters always in our stuff, but we've always been in control. And we went to SA, we had a conversation with Universal, and they put us in studio with Tricky Stewart. Tricky Stewart is Beyonce's...
Tricky Stewart is my boy. Through Leo Fire.
No, so Tricky, for the guys who don't know Tricky is...
Tricky wacha tu.
Tricky in the producer.
Beyonce, Jay-Z, Umbrella,
Kila kitu, Umbrella,
Maya,
Rihanna,
Case of the X.
Tricky Stewart, Justin Bieber's baby.
Tricky is just...
Shout out to Tricky, man. And from Tricky's session...
And Leo Fire. They work. Leo Fire is his business partner.
What?
Yeah, that's how I know him.
I didn't even know Leo and Tricky are boys, man. And Leo is our guy.
They're business partners. Tricky's vlog was being edited here in Kenya by Kintu. Yeah. They shoot in the US, it's edited here.
Serendipity basi, maze, because like it just happened that Tricky was in SA, we were in SA, and we went to studio together. And then Tricky is he's a vocal producer.
Yeah.
And people don't understand the layers.
Let me just tell you. Okay. Tricky and Kak Harrell and the Dream Nash. That's one team.
Yes.
Kak Harrell, Rihanna's vocal producer.
Mm-hmm.
That's family. Okay. So that's who Tricky is.
And Tricky is 50, guys. He's not a young guy.
Yeah, I know.
So he's done his time.
But explain vocal producers. So
yeah, but you see, I had never experienced a vocal producer in my entire career. I always just go into the booth and I record. And here we wear all the hats. But I realized abroad, everybody is a specialist in what they do. So in every song, there's the melody writer, comes up with melodies. Then there's the lyric writer who puts the lyrics in those melodies. There's the producer of the track and everything else. And then there's a vocal producer who just makes sure that you articulate, pronounce everything that has been written for you in the right way, intonations. And we got into a space where for the first time we had been written for and we were being told what to say. That has never happened to me before. But now me in my 33 years, also with my, I have a little bit of an ego, being put into the booth and being told, you're going to sing this because this is what works, was a difficult thing to surrender. But what I learned from that process is we made 6 songs with Tricky in 3 days. And if we want to experience success as an industry, it's quality and quantity. So we need the industry to specialize. Like, let's not wear all the hats.
I went to a conference in LA once where I met the Lipman brothers. Remember that time I went and all that stuff? And there was a panel of all these A&R executives from all the major labels in the world. And that is exactly what they were talking about. They were talking about why is it so difficult for artists from outside of the United States to break into the States? And there's that subconscious ear that, those markets and the listeners in that market listen with and listen to music. And the moment you mispronounce stuff differently, they immediately chuck you into that world music cabinet.
Imagine.
And so they specifically work with these vocal producers who did what they did with you in Durban to tell you how you pronounce, batter. When you sing batter, do you say batter or batter or batter? And that makes such a difference. Subconsciously, you think it's a detail, but in order to break into other markets, that is one of the biggest focuses. These vocal producers who will tell you how to pronounce and whatever you're singing in those, how you pronounce those words in your lyrics. So it's super important.
Listen to Rihanna's first album and her albums after Umbrella.
Yeah.
She had
the difference Kak Harrell brought into that project.
She had a very strong island accent.
Yeah.
And she then...
And that's for international ears. That makes...
Guys, it changed my life. I could barely... Okay, first of all, I was in the booth for a solid 20 minutes singing one line. I sang that line until my head was ringing. I had to take a break. And I went inside. I was frustrated, man. I sat outside... And Tricky followed me outside to just tell me, bro, it's okay. Don't think about it too much. go back and try. When I listened to the version of Sauti Sol that Tricky had produced, because now that's them seeing Sauti Sol from there. My mind was blown. And it's important for us as Kenyans to understand that if we want to break global markets, we have to speak in the tones they understand.
You also have to have. I remember I was with you in Burundi 3 years ago, and I'd just done the Tubog project with Diplo and Nyash, and I was working also on Morgan Heritage project that time. You kept telling me one day I want to be in a studio in New York. I want to be in but you see, you have ambition. I've worked for 24 years. I can count the number of artists who've told me they want to be in a studio in LA.
And that's okay. Some artists will be happy, but
you see, Marek, that's
performing here, and some artists are destined to perform on a global stage.
But you see, how do you compete globally if you don't even have the ambition?
Bro, we need to compete globally.
See, for me, I used to tell my kraba when I was at Tomboys, one day I have to go to New York. I didn't know I was going to go there, but you can't think local.
It's true. And you know, like where we are at right now, the thing that's really hurting us is the numbers game.
Yeah.
You know, having 10 A-list artists just means that there's going to be a Wizkid situation. And if you look at Wizkid and Thames, the song that now is the number one, the song of the summer, is sang in a language they can understand. Thames' pronunciation of "you don't need no other body."
Yeah, I mean, it is
spot on. Like you can break it down scientifically.
This is what's been happening in Nigeria. They've progressed in that regard so much.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And on top of that, also Nigeria speaks Pidgin. And Pidgin is the sister of English. So you're going to get a couple of things here and there. But coming from a Kenyan side, if you really want to appeal, you need to nikitakiring yourself a little.
I mean, look at Burna Boy's album that won a Grammy. Yeah. It's not the album that had Burna and Ye. No. I mean, when I listen to Burna Boy's album with the Grammys, it's an album written for an international market.
It is. It's true. There's a song completely there. So as we were recording again,
do you know the song you guys did with him was featured in Sound on Sound? A magazine that analyzes mixes. As in, that song was broken. I called Delvin. I'm like, you guys, your song is on Sound on Sound. Being mixing analyzed.
But to tell you the honest truth, that album before the year and all that stuff, that's my favorite album.
The guy is explaining,
because that's authentic.
It was missed by a guy in LA explaining how he broke down the. Have you seen that article? I mean, you can't compare that album with the one with Burna.
Yeah, the song
is very different.
The song, wonder. The one that single that was the flagship single of that album, I didn't like.
Yeah.
And the other day when we were in studio, we were recording a song that sounded more in that family. And as an African, to me, I feel like it sounds a bit tacky. But to Tricky and to the guys who are from the States, that is how they understand us. And they haven't told you to do 10 of those. They've told you can be yourself, you can be authentic. But if you want to talk to us, this is the language you have to speak.
I'll tell you what exactly Tricky told me on that phone call with Leo. We were discussing Davido's song Fall was now entering the US market. So I was like, now you see now African artists are conquering the world now. They told me, boss, it doesn't work like that. This song is not going to play beyond a few circles because of the influence of the market. But the real Americans, the real us guys, that's not the music we're going to jump to in our clubs.
Yeah, and if you wonder why we're focusing on America, it's because America decides the culture, the trend.
Yeah.
It's America that decides who listens to what and what becomes big word.
Algorithms are written
and
there.
True enough,
are written there.
3 months later, Davido's Fall just fell. Just went. So I was on a call another day with Leo and he's like, I told you, bro, Americans here are still jamming to their own music. And if you want to speak to them, you have to do music that they can understand, they can perceive.
And it doesn't mean that you need to do something and record something that you're not, right? Because that's never going to work, right? Yeah. But it means in your career development, you need to create your music and then work with international producers, international DJs to give you that sound, to interpret for that market. So you basically end up like a chameleon. You're not changing from a chameleon to a monkey to a dog to fit the scenario. You know, you're just a chameleon that changes colors. Because that's cool. You're still a chameleon, but you know how to adjust to these different markets.
Because Burna Boy is still Burna Boy. He's not changed. But you can when I heard that album, I was like, yo, this sound is this is Grammy straight up.
Yeah. I also asked why Midnight Train was not Grammy nominated or wasn't pushed in the States. And I was given a truthful answer that I will share. It was a
Interested?
It was a bitter pill to swallow. They mentioned that in America there are categories for radio. So there's urban radio, there's pop radio,
contemporary.
There's AC, adult contemporary, contemporary, and then there's all these versions.
And this didn't really fit.
When we write our music in Kenya, how we write, and the English that we use, and the cadences we use, as a country that's learning English as a third language, because in Kenya, your English is your third language, after your mother tongue, and then Swahili, and then now English.
Luya, Swahili.
There's that whole thing. When I write my English, I'm writing English I'm writing cadences that were cool 10 years ago. And so immediately I am adult contemporary. But if you want to cross over to urban radio, you have to understand the lingo of the now. And you have to be able to compete at that level.
Yeah.
So there you'll find Drake,
consistently.
Justin Bieber, Ariana
And that's why
Grande.
they'll have other people writing for them.
Yeah, that's me. California.
And they didn't write this, maybe.
They didn't
Most
write
likely. They have people writing for them, so there's the addition of working with other writers.
The element of surrender is so important that an artist like Chris Brown comes back from touring and he has 40 songs on the table from the world's best songwriters.
Yeah.
Beyonce does 70 songs. Tricky told me Beyonce does 70 songs before she puts out an album. I don't know of a Kenyan artist right now who has 70 songs.
The amount of people that worked on an entire album, there's the amount of people that work on one song on Justin Bieber's album. You know, it's just...
Imagine, by the way, there's like... Beyonce's Lemonade had 80 writers. So it really is much about surrender than it is about anything. Like, Tushajua, when him normal, we know you're good. We know Bien can sing. But we really don't care about that right now. And it was very important for me to humble myself in that space and to allow somebody else to lead me.
Understand your strengths and outsource your weaknesses.
Yeah. But you see, again, it's a business.
Yeah.
Do I want 100,000 of 1 billion or do I want 1 million of 1 million?
Yeah, it's music business.
100,000,
you know, it's
100
not
years
all
forever.
just business, and I hate taking it just down to that, because for many people it's not just about the business, you know. It's also about the art and the music and stuff like that. So I said not everybody has to strive for that.
I mean, definitely, you know, like, I'm not doing Boy to achieve American pop success. That is an expression that's from my heart, and that explains to the world where I'm from.
And the language you understand and what you speak.
And language you understand. And it's not an either or as well. You can do both. You can do a song that speaks to your audience at home and one that speaks to your audience abroad.
Even in the US, they adapt songs.
They do.
They adapt. They release. This is a Japanese release. This is an American release. They change a few things. They adapt. It's what?
You not just adapt to countries, but you adapt to the platforms where you're releasing the
completely.
Songs. You're on streaming. You're not going to have a long introduction like you would have on a music video where people can be like, first of all, interested by visuals. Because streaming, people fly through playlists, stuff like you've got 10 seconds to catch your attention. On a music video, you can have a minute of like, you know, just somebody following you from behind you on back on a dark alley kind of a thing, you know. So it's not just adapting geographically, but adapting to the platforms as well is really key.
Let's talk about streaming.
Yeah.
Because like in Kenya, we are so caught up chasing a number one on YouTube that we don't understand where the actual money comes from. So where does, in advanced industries, what platforms pay the best? And let's talk about streaming. Let's unearth streaming.
In the future, the platforms that will pay you the best are the ones that are created locally with local algorithms or local technology. There was a lot of talk about it in Durban now as well. It's really about that, you know. So in the future, it's going to be the songas that hopefully wish have worked or haven't worked. It's going to be the boom plays, maybe, things like that. So that's one thing, is who owns the technology and who runs the technology will always have a bias to what that algorithm supports, pushes, and prioritizes. There's a technological element.
I mean, definitely, like local, exactly what he has said. I was at a music forum for Boomplay 2 days ago. And I mean, from somebody who understands technology, it's exactly the way he has put it. The local platforms will always pay you better. I mean, you can't compete. Because Apple is going to pay you the rate set in another region.
And a dollar.
Legal framework.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it doesn't, it's not working for you per se. Yeah.
You need to cut the middleman. One thing that I realize is that when you're writing an album, you have to write it thinking of how people will stream it. So the grooves that you choose, so it shouldn't be very, very, different, varying. I saw that with Wizkid's album Made in Lagos. When you start listening to Made in Lagos, from the top to the edge to the bottom, it's a stream. And also 21 Savage has an album that when you start listening from, it doesn't even stop. Like there's a skit in the middle, or it's an interlude, a music interlude into the next song. So as an industry also, as we write albums, we need to think about it.
This, like, right now we are going into studio to work on our second album as Decimators. And the lessons I've learned for the last 3 years, the other album has been out. Don't have reggae, don't have hip hop. Just because I experimented with Brian Adran's album, and I was just shocked by how streaming people listen to music as a stream. It's just one.
Yeah.
A Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, probably one of my favorite albums of all time, right? It's also just when you are putting an album together, it's like a book, and I think that's maybe a little bit of a mistake that we did with Live and Die in Africa. I don't know if that was the case.
We didn't quite understand. Even with Midnight Train, like it's a lovely album with amazing songs, but we didn't factor in how it streams. Because of time, this could go on forever. We have a question here that speaks to how do we archive our music moving forward. I think it's important to talk about
catalog.
How do you preserve music in a sense?
It's preservation, it's not archiving.
Where we can remaster our work. Because when you look at the Rolling Stones, they had the same album that was released in 1960s, but it's remastered in the year 2000. It's remastered in the year...
But it goes back again to understanding. For me, I'm a big proponent of business. This is a bloody business. Let's not fool ourselves, because if we don't treat it like a business, there's no point. Because why do we have Elvis music still stored somewhere? Because it makes money for somebody. And they have the foresight. And again, business management. Managing resources. You have to have the foresight to know that this record is going to be important at some point. So how do I store it? How do I catalog it? How do I distribute it? How do I make it available if somebody wants to look for it? If now I want to look for an East album, it's a headache. Why is it a headache? But you see, for me, when I started doing music, that's one reason, that's one problem I encountered. So the whole point of preservation, why for me it's a big issue, and why for me I've preserved everything I've ever done. Because the label that had signed us was bought off by somebody else. And I had no access to my songs. That's for the day it dawned on me, like, shit. I have nothing. I went home, ate, slept, I woke up, I own nothing. I didn't even know who to ask, where is my song? I'd worked with Lucas of Ogopa. We had recorded some songs. I called him, he told me, Anaizo files. For me, that thing hurt me so much. I was 19 years and I'm like,
I'm going to become an engineer. I'm going to keep all my...
I don't have anything. Like, I have nothing. For me, that was a very big wake-up call. 3 weeks ago, Rafton called me. They have a case with Bamboo about a song I produced in 2005. Yes, Msioksu kona hizi files. I went to my folder. I told him, you recorded this song October 19th, 2005. I store everything because I lost everything that was dear to me. So for me, that I just felt so useless. I'm like, I've struggled with my mom to fight for my music. This label has been sold off to somebody. I don't even have access to, I can't even show my mom what I've done. For me, that was why I started cataloging everything. So I catalog everything I do.
an important thing, man. The guys, keep your vocals, keep everything.
Keep your records, everything. Today, if you want to
Crank it
even
up.
die,
3 different drives.
the harmonies for Kuliko Jana, they're there.
You have them.
I have 3 backups of them.
They told Musioka. They don't call him Musioka. Yeah,
But you
it's
see, that's
cheap
why
for a
now,
reason.
if you want to look for now, now I put the Nanoma album once I got the rights to clear with everybody, because you see some of the songs were owned by other people. So once I cleared all that and I did all, because I've always wanted that album up on iTunes. Like, I knew people want to have access to this content, but I couldn't distribute it because of certain legal issues. So when we overcame those issues, now I was able to upload it.
My friends, you have learned all the lessons. There's so many lessons to learn. This is actually a university course that goes 4 years. We're trying to put it up in an hour. I have a question, guys.
Mm-hmm.
What's your grooming process like, Marek? How do you shine the crown?
You know what? I'm relatively. Am I new to this? Not so new to this, actually.
You've been both since I knew you, bro.
I don't. I try and stay away from music, but I'm looking for something, and I know that is what you gave me at the launch of your album, and
Yeah.
I've been using it since then.
Oh, the share button?
Yeah, the
Nice.
share
And what's
Whipped
your grooming
share
process?
button.
by
For me,
the way?
I
You
have-
shave yourself?
I used to, but
Yeah.
it's tedious.
It's tedious, man. Leaving patches in there. Yeah, I agree. Anyway, let me just give you guys something to, escort you as you groom yourselves to be bold and to be the love and to be the light of the world. A gift for you, my friend, and a gift for you, my friend.
Thanks, man.
There's goodies. You can open it.
The way my dad was always
I
looking
know
at gifts was like,
there's some Jameson in there. I know
there's
it's
liquor
better than
in there.
drink. But Marek, you'll finish your Jameson tonight. But there's also like a t-shirt in there for
I love it.
from the association.
Because I got this and I brought it home, and Annabelle stole it immediately, man. Immediately.
I saw Annabelle with it.
Yeah, no, she was
online.
just like,
Do
you have it in black?
Nice.
Yeah. You can get it in black too. Don't worry. I know you only wear black, but then Musioka only wears black. And
Thank you.
So that I can wear it proudly.
Yeah, in fact, you can keep this, and then we'll add a black one for you, so that
Yes.
when you wear it with your wife, twinsing. And then also in there's some shea butter for you, courtesy of Natural Organics and Paraculture,
Sweet.
just to make sure that the crown stays shining.
I mean, but talking about the crown, this is also great. But
Yeah.
do you
Let's five.
shave, or because I still keep a little? Do you shave? Or what do you do
for
with
Mary
your
J.
musioks? Hey, there's a lighter in here. Everywhere I light the lighter, I always like make them read before I eat it. I had the one from your launch, and I'm like,
there's
they
another
read it,
one
they're like
there.
that. But do you shave, or do you leave a little? You guys shave to the.
I mean, I shave every week.
Every week.
Every
keep a little more roughness.
Yeah, I mean, it's however you want to keep it, man. I want to thank also the sponsors for this particular episode.
Yeah.
You guys being on board really shows confidence in where the music industry is headed, and just making sure that these conversations that are very important are being had. So I'm
the
so
only thing
grateful.
we know how to do. So
Yeah.
I was talking to Aaron, and he's like, I'm told him, I'll never go to a hospital to treat anyone. You'll find me in a studio.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Thanks for having us, man.
Thank you for coming. Like, this has been, my heart is full. And Bald Man out.